when they actually spend their time listening to this show. What does it mean? It means we're winning.
So please excuse my sarcastic tone. I'm a bit underwhelmed by the sample shown. Mr. Bistro fraternity guy, you got my asshole bloodshot eyes. Get drunk and fight every night. Idolize Bradley, belittle women's rights. Homophobic, racist, and don't give a fucking hey. Do you think you can drive a bigger truck? So wear your baseball cap to the side to let everyone know that you're a nice guy. I'm so cool, was so impressed. Lots of chicks in a barrel chest. Cause you're a real man. Punch for punch, gonna piss in your face while you're passed out drunk. I'm a nice guy, you're a nice guy. He's a nice guy, but all of you are assholes. I'm a nice guy, you're a nice guy. She's a nice guy, but all of you are assholes. Nice guys rule the planets. I just can't understand it. Fucker defined by deception and lies. Social Darwinism and an overdose of pride. Fuck off, jerk off. I don't wanna hear it. Fuck off, jerk off. Read into the lyrics. Guess everybody gets their just desserts. As long as you remember that nice guys finish Mr. White Beater, you're next on the list. Such a nice guy who speaks through his fists. Prick with a penchant for messing with heads. A broken nose for dinner and breakfast in bed. Alcoholic, paranoid, and suicidal too. But you'll probably kill her before she gets away from you. Screws in the pool, let it cry. All your friends say that you're a nice guy. Have a drink, this one's on me. Look, you're doing fine, losing to your disease. Tomatos, I'll pack your bags. Bury you in my cash rated gag. I'm a nice guy, you're a nice guy. We're all nice guys, but all of you are assholes. He's a nice guy, she's a nice guy. Hey, Tom Bo's a nice guy. All of you are assholes. Nice guys rule the planet. The fundamental put a body by deception and lies. Social Darwinism and an overdose of pride. Fuck off, jerk off. I don't wanna hear it. Fuck off, jerk off. Read into the lyrics. So let the fucking will quench your thirst. As long as you remember that nice guys finish first.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Plex. We do the show live every Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific right here on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/EchoPlexMedia. Everybody in the chat already knows, but podcast listeners, I am moving again at the end of the month. It's been a year in this studio. So maybe, I don't know, support this project at patreon.com/EchoPlex or go to eplex.store and support there. Or go to echoplexmedia.com/support. You can find other ways to support this project. I'm producer Dave. You can find me on Grindr, and this is, in fact, what the people want.
I don't hate the cops. There's a person inside when the truncheon stops. Oh, don't hate the cops. Oh, when the raiders come, who will protect the shops? Don't hate the cops. They're a sensitive bunch if you don't stop throwing your rocks. Snap, crackle, pop is the sound of a taser. Your body drops. Don't hate the cops. like your local police. Cause they don't do nothing wrong like your local police. Got rid of the corruption and the racism is gone. They've been keeping the peace, keeping homeless folks out of the parks and malls. Got a cure for your social disease. Follow the law, don't hate the cops. 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 Put your hands above your head and show you're not afraid. I'm the fairest judge that your skin color's gonna get. And if you die before the sun comes up, the paperwork will take forever. Well, it might have worked out a little bit better if you didn't hate the cops. Cause they don't do nothing wrong, don't hate the cops. You can't blame them for just doing their job, don't hate the cops. Well, you gotta wonder, how much would it cost for you to be shot at and stabbed at by maniacs and drunks? Don't hate the cops, don't hate the cops. Don't hate the cops, don't hate the cops. Don't hate the cops. Don't hate the cops, don't hate the cops. Don't hate the cops, don't hate the cops.
So I wasn't quite sure where to put this story on our story list, so I put it first. This isn't really a story. This is just a video. What we're going to be looking at here for podcast listeners, because you're not going to be able to really tell what's going on unless you go check out the video, is a dude's going to try to stick up a nail salon, and the people in the nail salon are just going to be completely uninterested in his attempt to hold up the nail salon.
Everybody get down! Give me all the money! Let's get the boxes! Give me all the money! Get down! Where's the money? Give me the money! Where's the money? Everybody give me everything! Where's the money? Give me your money.
I think it was his presentation was unconvincing, and I don't think he had a firearm. I think that might have been part of the problem, but also maybe those people just didn't give a fuck. They're like, fuck it, I'm getting my nails done. Shoot me, I guess. That was great. Podcast listeners, you're going to have to check out, either you can check out the docket, which will be posted in the show notes, or you can just watch the video of this on YouTube, Odyssey, etc., etc. Or you can catch the VOD on Twitch, too. Anyway, we're going to move on to the RFK Jr. Section of this week's show. Here's an ad he did about drug addiction.
We are losing the war on drugs. What policies or ideas do you have that would change that? What's your platform on substance use and overdose? We need help desperately.
You know, I have my own history of addiction. So I was an addict for 14 years, between starting one after my dad died till I was 28 years old. And I'm very active in recovery. Over my 40 years working these programs, I've taken hundreds and hundreds of people into different forms of recovery. And I have a very good idea of what works and a vision for what we need to do in this country. And we need to make addiction treatment easy, simple, cheap. And that's what we need to build here. And what I would do, as president, I would decriminalize marijuana. I will make safe banking laws for people who are selling it, but I will tax it federally, and I will use that money to build these healing centers in rural areas, depressed rural areas all over the country, where kids can grow organic food and eat good, eat well, heal themselves spiritually, physically, and emotionally.
Beautiful model.
And not only for fentanyl, but also for the many, many kids who are now stuck on SSRIs and are suffering.
Yep, fucking, I knew that was going to be in here. Fucking shout out to Scientology, I guess.
Other forms of depression. We need to start healing our country. This is going to be my Peace Corps program. And my uncle had the Peace Corps. I'm going to build these rehab centers all over the country, these farms, healing camps where people can go, where our American children can go and find themselves again and come back and become contributing members to our society. If you like this video and you want to help me become president.
No. I don't want to help you become president. That fuck smelled a little like Xenu, if you ask me. So there may be ways in which some psychiatric medicine is overprescribed, but putting that in the same camp as people who have putting it in the same category as people who are addicted to something like fentanyl is, I think, irresponsible and ableist. So here's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. giving a speech to the New Hampshire State Senate. FYI, this was a little bit of a slower news week, so we do have some longer clips that I grabbed to fill some time here, because a lot was happening, but there wasn't a lot of clips this week.
Thank you, Speaker Packard. And I want to also send greetings to Lou Alessandro, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak to the New Hampshire State Senate. My family has a long history and deep history in this state, going back to my great-grandparents, Honey Fitz and Patrick Kennedy. My grandfather, Joseph Kennedy, spent his summer camps at Lake Wine Oak up in Wolfsboro. I grew up camping and hiking every summer and every winter in New Hampshire, hiking the presidential range. I talked with Speaker Packard and saw his beautiful photographs of some of those peaks. I told him that I'd spent many nights on Mount Washington in the huts in the middle of the winter skiing Tuckerman's Ravine. I hiked in the summer times the presidentials, but also Osceola, Tri-Pyramid, Mount Carrigan, Mount Flume, and many, many others. My brothers cut trails for their summer job at Waterville Valley, and I'm very proud that Tommy Corcoran named the steepest.
We get it. You've been to New Hampshire.
Father, who loved to ski there as well. I'm here because I am going to participate in this primary in this state. I oppose the DNC's decision to evict New Hampshire from the first in nation status, which is so important, I think, to our country.
Why is it important to our country that New Hampshire specifically is the first primary? Why is that? The reason that they want to change it is because New Hampshire is less representative. It's less like a state like California that's more representative of the nation's demographics as a whole. That's why they wanted to move it out of New Hampshire. New Hampshire went like a forward rally.
New Hampshire plays a critical role in vetting candidates for the rest of the country.
I think we should do all the primaries on the same day. That'd be fun.
The states are content with having politicians come in with money that they've gotten from billionaires and carpet bombing the state from 30,000 feet with advertising, or staging occasionally rallies that are heavily orchestrated, where the crowds are heavily screened and they're kind of a kabuki theater of democracy. But here, politicians get real democracy. They encounter people. They have to go to the hair salons, the barber shops, the diners, the gas stations. They have to talk to the 80-year-old lady who reads the Financial Times and the Economist every week and ask them a question and a follow-up
monthly
question,
publications?
another follow-up question that they will never get from CNN. They will never get it from the New York Times even. And it's retail politics. And they are vetting our candidates the same way that they would vet a city council candidate or a local mayor. And they do it for the rest of the country. And the other thing that's very important about
we want the lily white state of New Hampshire to vet the candidates for the rest of the country, is kind of what he's saying.
Is that there are 42% of the people in this state are registered independents. It's the highest of any state. And the importance of that right now is that those are people who are critical thinkers, they're independent thinkers.
Why do you think that?
They're able to step outside of that fixed, paralyzing iceberg of partisanship that has our country at each other's throats. They're able to look at candidates without the ideology blocking their vision and really judge the candidates on what they say and be open to.
Independent doesn't mean you're non-ideological. It just means that you're not registered with any of the political parties. That are not locked in that ideological razor grip. Right now, it's particularly important at New Hampshire that we have a real democracy and a democratic election in New Hampshire. There's so many Americans who believe that the system now is rigged, the economic system, but also the political system, that the elections are fixed. But how does making New Hampshire first do that?
Gold standard for political elections. People don't question the results. And we ought to be, the Democratic Party particularly, ought to be making this election a template for democracy to our country and to the rest of the world. And say, we're going to have a real democracy where candidates meet human beings, are questioned by them, have town halls, and deal with all of the difficulties of retail politics. And we need to show the American people that is particularly important at this time for another reason. And I believe that the motto of the granite state, live free and die, is not just a motto. The many people in New Hampshire take that personally. They have a fierce pride and liberty. Over 500 New Hampshire men died in the American Revolution to give us our freedoms, to give us our rights, along with 25,000 elsewhere in our country. And today, those rights are under attack like never before in our history. In the last 3 years, there's been an all-out assault on the Bill of Rights. We now have, for the first time, the government participating in censorship of political dissent, of people who are criticizing federal policies. We saw churches close. We saw freedom of worship threatened. Every church in this country was closed for a year without any scientific citation, without any...
this is incorrect.
Democratic...
I mean, it's not like the fucking scientists were like, close the churches. They were like, stay away from each other. Like it was stay, don't be in enclosed spaces with people for long periods of time. That was, he's full of shit right here. He's lying.
Process, no notice and comment, public hearings, all of that was just abolished. And bureaucrats just decided to close all the churches. And they went after freedom of assembly. They shut down, they said, we have to social distance. We have to lock ourselves in our house. They went after the...
We weren't locked in our houses.
Rights to property.
Stop being a drama queen.
They closed down 3.3 million businesses in this country with no due process, no just compensation.
No, there were PPP loans.
Guarantees against warrantless searches and seizures with all this intrusive government track and trace surveillance and American...
Track and trace was opt-in.
Records before leaving their homes or entering a public building. And they abolished jury trials for whole classes of defendants. So they what? Pharmaceutical industry.
What? They abolished jury trials for whole classes of defendants? Most people accused of a crime don't go to trial. They just plead out.
No matter how grievous your injury, no matter how negligent their conduct or reckless, Americans could not sue them for the redress. The Seventh Amendment is very simple. It says, no American shall be deprived of the right of a jury before a trial of their peers in cases or controversies exceeding $25. There is no pandemic exception. And the framers knew all about pandemics and epidemics. There was an epidemic, 2 epidemics during the Revolutionary War, a malaria epidemic that decimated the armies of Virginia, a smallpox epidemic that affected New Hampshire at the very time when Benedict Arnold's armies conquered Montreal, and they had to withdraw from Montreal because their troop strength was so low because of smallpox. Otherwise, today, Canada would be part of the United States. The framers knew that. They also, between the end of the Revolution and the ratification of the Bill of Rights, there were epidemics in every city in this country, smallpox epidemics, cholera epidemics, yellow fever epidemics that killed tens of thousands of people, including many of the family members of the framers. And yet they did not put an epidemic exception in the United States Constitution. They wrote that document for hard times, not for easy times. During the Civil War, when the Confederate government was sending agents provocateur to every American city, northern city, to drum up draft riots, Abraham Lincoln tried to arrest the Confederates when they came in. They knew who they were. And he suspended habeas corpus. And the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Roger Taney, said you can't do it. Even if the life of the nation is at stake, you cannot do it. In the Civil War, there were 659,000 people who died. It's the equivalent of 7,200,000 today, much worse than the pandemic. And yet the Supreme Court said you cannot suspend the Constitution no matter what. It's more important than anything. And today, now, we have all these new surveillance technologies. We have digital currencies, AI technology, which is frightening, GPS technologies, 400,000 low-level satellites that are going to look at every square inch of the Earth every day. It has been the ambition of every totalitarian regime in history to control every aspect of human behavior. They've never been able to do it, but they can do it now. And it's so important that we counter that threat by strengthening and fortifying our democratic institutions, not weakening them. And that begins with the Bill of Rights, and it includes the New Hampshire primary. And I'm going to be in this state fighting to win every vote I can in New Hampshire, Republican, Democratic, and Independent. And when I'm elected president and I'm head of the Democratic Party, I'm going to pour concrete on the notion that New Hampshire is first in the nation. Thank you very much.
But like, why the fuck do you care so much that New Hampshire's the first? The reason he doesn't want like a southern state to be first, I think we're doing South Carolina or North Carolina first. I forget. He thinks he has a chance in these states, but if he goes to a state where there's a more representative population, where there's basically not a bunch of white people, he's going to get fucking clobbered in the first primary. And so that's why he wants this, but he doesn't have any control over this. And I think the states have the ultimate say anyway. Anyway, I'm not an expert on all this stuff. I just know that this guy's a fucking problem. This guy's not going to beat Joe Biden, but he's a fucking problem. And this one's going to be a little bit longer too. We're probably not going to watch the whole thing because this is quite long, but this is Tim Pool saying that RFK Jr. is winning.
From Rasmussen, 35% of Democrats think RFK Jr. could win. The latest Rasmussen report, National Televote and Online Survey, found 49% of likely U.S. voters have a favorable impression of RFK Jr., including 14% with a very favorable opinion. 38% view Kennedy unfavorably, including 18% with a very unfavorable impression, while another 14 are not sure. So this is it. We don't have the rest of the data. That's the general idea right here.
RFK Jr. You don't have it, Tim, because you couldn't be fussed to look it up.
In the double digits. We're seeing something interesting. A lot of people have suggested this could be our last election, both on the left and the right. Or maybe 2020 was our last sort of election, I guess, with ballot harvesting and all the rules being changed and and COVID lockdown. Can you really even call it? Maybe 2016 was the last, because whatever's coming up in 2024, it'll approximate an election, like 2020 did, but it's going to be very, very weird. So there will be something, but you're going to have what? RFK Jr., Trump. Like who are the candidates going to be? The fact is,
most likely it looks like Donald Trump and Joe Biden
fighting to an extreme degree. You've got the media smearing RFK Jr. to an extreme degree, but he's polling in double digits, near 20. He's consistently around 20%. It seems like the system's starting to fracture.
Smearing him it's not a smear to to tell people what he says and what he believes. Like, that's not a smear. That's just reporting on what the man has said. The man has a long history of saying dumb shit about vaccines. And more recently, about a dumb shit about 5G.
A bunch of different ways. So it's hard to know exactly who's going to win. Yep. But I did see another poll that said Democrats are more likely to vote third party than Republicans, which suggests a Trump victory. Because if RFK Jr. runs as an independent,
he's not going to.
Democratic nomination, or if they put Biden in, then it will split the Democrat vote.
Yeah.
Do you think RFK Jr. would run as an independent, or will he pull a Bernie?
There's all kinds of reports that he's considering running independent. He hasn't told me personally what he's going to do, but he might as well. I mean, he has so much.
When they say pull a Bernie, that means accept that the other candidate got more votes and drop out gracefully. That's what they mean when they say pull a Bernie.
There's no reason, if he has the funding, there's no reason for him not to. Right?
And do you think the Democrats would let him touch the debate stage?
No.
You don't think so?
Well, that's because we don't do that. Like, when there's an incumbent president, I don't think have we ever had debates when there was an incumbent president running again? Were there ever debates on that side? There maybe sometime in the history of the country that happened, but I'm drawing a blank.
Of course not. I mean, look, they cut Andrew Yang's microphone off.
Yeah, it was absurd.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, it was absurd. Well,
also, you can't.
That was, it's a little unfair, but whatever. Cut Andrew Yang's microphone off. Fuck it.
On a debate stage.
No,
there's no way that he would be able to, I mean, already, I'm trying to find the numbers right now, but a significant number of Democrats feel Biden is too old. So yes, there's infighting the Republicans, but the Democrats don't want their most likely incumbent nominee right now. I mean, this is not looking good for me, and I'm not a political consultant by any means, but RFK can only benefit, even if he doesn't end up being the Democratic nominee. Why not just push forward? So many moderates are looking at him like, hey, this.
No, it's not moderates. It's fucking kooks that are looking at him. And the people, like, the poll numbers are like, the favorable opinion of him is probably just legacy, right? They remember Bobby Kennedy, and people just aren't like, not everybody is so online as we are, right? And so they don't know that this guy is saying, I mean, the things he said about 5G or whatever, or radio frequencies and shit on the Joe Rogan show were just disconnected from reality. And if regular people heard that, they'd be like, what the fuck? But most people actually don't listen to Joe Rogan.
The same way that there were moderates who didn't think of themselves as any particular party who ended up voting for Trump because they felt like he represented something. I think RFK in some way could win ground back for the Democrats. Not every single one, but I think that he represents something the Democrats.
I think he would turn people off 4-1, actually, toward the Democratic Party. For every one person he brought into the fold, he'd turn off 4 people like me.
In a long time.
There's a lot of boomers, I think, that would appeal to him, or he would appeal to, just because of the fact that he's a Kennedy. Adrian Curry called him this great thing, and I
Adrian Curry, you mean QAvon? Adrian Curry, that Adrian Curry?
From her, the son of Camelot. There's a lot of people that are older Gen X and boomers that still harken back to that, the Camelot era, the way that they looked at the Kennedys and all that stuff. And a lot of the stuff that he's saying is the stuff that people that are fairly anti-government get into. Even he's got a lot of influence, even in the Libertarian Party, which personally I don't understand it so much, other than his anti-war and kind of pharmaceutical stance.
But Scientologists love him too,
or at least skepticism. But I do think that he would appeal to a significant portion of the older Democrats.
Yeah, he doesn't have the same progressive edge in some ways. I mean, look at what's going on right now. He is spending all of his time in New Hampshire. He's focused there
because it's the only state that he can win. It's the only state where it looks like he can win, so he's going to focus all his attention there.
going to concentrate. South Carolina, the Democratic, the DCCC is already saying we want South Carolina to primary first, and this is really upsetting New Hampshire's voters. And they are saying you are going to give the state to the Republicans. Obviously, they don't carry a lot of electoral votes. On the other hand, they are traditionally the first in the nation. So
that's is that the reason to do New Hampshire first? Just because that's what we did before? I think we should pull that shit out of a hat. See who gets to go first. I think that'd be pretty cool, right? Just fucking pull it out of a hat.
Saying I'm going to focus on you guys. You are the state that I will pay attention to. Shows an interest in keeping with some traditions and some balances of power that the Biden wing of the Democratic Party is willing to abandon.
What if it is RFK? I mean, you look.
It's not going to be.
Can't campaign.
He's going to get clobbered in California. He's going to get clobbered in New York.
He can't travel around the country.
No.
I mean, the big news, which we'll get into in a second, is that he's got CPAP marks on his face now. And he's 80 years old. The dude is unwell, and we've known he's got
no. That like the CPAP machine. That's your thing. That's your come on. That's all you can come up with is that he needs a CPAP machine.
Metal plates in his head. He can't talk straight. He can't travel around this country. RFK Jr. can. And what is he? 69 years old.
Yeah.
He's also fit. Got that video of him.
Fucking steroids is what that looked like to me. There's a certain way that your body looks from steroids, but I'm not a medical professional.
He's lifting, bench pressing.
Yeah.
And he's going to be able to go around and get votes. He's going to be able to build his profile. He does have a difficult time speaking, though, with all due respect. And that matters, but he's still been able to. He's still going to be. Able
I think that most liberals and lefties aren't gonna hold RFK Jr.'s speech impediment against him. I don't. That has nothing to do with why I think he can go fuck himself.
Podcast, do town halls. Biden cannot.
I think.
How could Gavin Newsom beat someone like RFK Jr.?
True, and I think even with
Gavin Newsom, that'd be great in 28. If the Democratic primary is Gavin Newsom and RFK Jr. Gavin Newsom would just absolutely clobber RFK Jr. He would just, the messaging out of his campaign would just be playing clips of the opponent saying crazy things about 5G and vaccines. There's a clip of him talking to Dane Wigington from Geoengineering Watch about chemtrails. Gavin Newsom's a bit of a scumbag, but if he runs in 28 and RFK Jr. is his opponent, I would probably consider picking up a consulting gig for his campaign because I know everything about RFK Jr.
I'm not sure what to call it. Maybe a speech impediment. With that RFK has, you hear it once, you get used to it. With Biden, he just doesn't have any actual cohesive thoughts. I mean, there is not. It would be terrifying to put him on a debate stage.
He doesn't have a speech impediment. The lights are literally out. Whereas RFK Jr. is a really smart guy. But did
that guy just say Trump is stupid?
Basically made the prediction on his Twitter show that it's going to be Gavin Newsom. And as a Californian, that scares me to death. Like, you think RFK Jr. could be Gavin?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Gavin Newsom is so good at retail politics. Absolutely not.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I mean,
why? Do you think the establishment would let that happen?
No. I'm saying if you were to place Gavin, if you put Gavin Newsom on a stage with RFK Jr. wins, no question.
I totally agree.
How?
Whether or not the establishment, the machine, the media.
Dude, Gavin Newsom is like a good-looking guy. Like hella people like Gavin Newsom because they kind of got a little bit of a crush on him. Not really my type. He's too like clean cut and whatever. But Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom runs. Gavin Newsom, if he runs in 2028 during the primary, he might get off. He would probably get all 50 states.
Different question.
Yeah.
So, but I think in terms of, I think Trump would have a hard time debating RFK Jr. RFK Jr. is doing a fantastic job. He's got Trump supporters being like, we like this guy, and people actually saying Trump RFK Jr. or Trump Kennedy is the ticket.
Yeah,
I mean
which would be legendary.
Yeah, I mean seriously.
Yeah,
massive.
Yeah,
Except that would never work because Trump is trying to take credit for the vaccine, and RFK Jr. thinks it's a fucking bioweapon and shit. That's not going to work.
I'd like to see that. That'd be great.
If Elon's right about it being like the funniest outcome being the most likely, then bring it on.
Then Trump Kennedy. Yeah. Well, he got that Twitter Spaces where he had Kelly Slater on it, Tulsi Gabbard, like all of these people that sort of represent this anti-establishment wing that's not even tied to a political party. It's just a cultural sentiment happening. So when you have the best surfer in the world that's getting on Twitter Spaces, yeah, dude, he was invited to the Spaces, and so when you have the best surfer in the world, like
does anybody even know the name of a professional surfer? There's nothing wrong with being a professional surfer. I just don't think the professional surfer has the kind of pull this guy thinks they do.
And
listen, dude, I know you're from San Diego and all. I don't know this guy's from San Diego. He just gives me big San Diego vibes. But most people don't know any of the names of any professional surfers.
It is interesting, though. You go back to the libertarian side of him, that on issues like pharmaceuticals, he is pro 2A, at least he says. But then he's not always. And there are old clips that are coming out now where he's like, okay, dude. But on top of that, like, he's super big government on issues of environmentalism. Yep. It's like, okay, so are you a Green New Deal president? Because that's...
Yeah, he probably is. And there are a lot of people who are probably saying, yes, I want that. There are probably a lot of Democrats who know that Biden can't win and absolutely would vote
Biden can win.
You're probably older ones. The younger ones, they just believe whatever they hear in the media, and it's laughably sad. Not all of them, but a lot of them. It is a kind of weird thing, right? You find like older Democrats won't believe you when you tell them what the media says, and younger Democrats believe whatever the media says.
Oh, is that how this works?
They were raised on TV.
Isn't Tim Pool the media?
Putting them in front of the TV, they just trust it. It's like having another adult in their lives. I also think they have made it so distrusting the media is a right-wing thing. And so if it's trendy to be left-wing, you can't,
well, that's what you
have to trust.
It's what you were saying. If Joe Biden hypothetically is in his bathroom and stumbles out of the shower to grab his dog's tail and then breaks his ankle, if you report that in any way that's negative, they'll call you right-wing.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what? But if you make that up, what you are is a confabulator.
And like, but that's the thing that happened. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And by the way, shouldn't everybody be concerned about his age? If he were to run again, he'd be 85 at the end of his next term.
Wait, how old's Trump?
So it's
there's no way he can run.
No,
he's going to beat his own record as the nation's oldest president.
Yeah,
but we've long speculated that they will criminally charge Joe Biden. He will get indicted.
Who's they?
Get arrested. Maybe on the documents, maybe on the corruption, and then they'll say we're not biased. We're going after Trump and Joe Biden.
Who's they?
Clearing the way for someone like Newsom.
538 has them at a...
There's no time for that. There's no time for that plan.
A 54.8% disapproval rating right now and a 40% approval. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So
it's like historically bad. It's like, I think only behind Carter.
Right. I mean, it's awful, and it's been awful all the time, and he's not doing anything to make it better. I mean, right now, he's on his tour about broadband internet, which is interesting and great, but you actually can't have him talk at all because, this feels so disrespectful to say, but he is ill. He is not okay.
He is not capable of being compelling to an audience.
Even with, which should be a slam dunk, this broadband tour, he can't win support because the more he's in public, the more people become concerned.
I think that part of the reason, I don't think that that's a compelling issue for the American people.
I think this guy's wrong. I live in the Bay Area and I've always struggled with unreliable internet, and I live in the Bay Area. This is a compelling issue. Think about people who live further out. Think about what their available internet is like.
Like, I don't think you really think the broadband
just because, especially after COVID, there were so many rural communities that struggled. While everyone else is like, you just do things online, and communities like I think of West Virginia and all the mountains, like you could not have school online because there are communities that don't have internet at home.
And it took us 6 months to get internet. At both locations. It's insane. And it cost tens of thousands of dollars to get them to actually trench and then lay the lines down to the node or whatever. It was nuts. It took forever.
I'm not saying it's like the single biggest.
But that's because, Tim, you live in a fucking compound in the middle of nowhere with it's like Lord of the Flies there, except everybody's 40.
Makes a difference, especially if you're a state that wants to develop business. I mean, you might be able to speak to this more, but if you're trying to lure young people in, you're saying, oh, you can work remotely now. Well, then you need guaranteed solid internet access. So it's not enough to have affordable housing or people buy land. Like if you cannot work from home, then the idea that you would move to a rural state like West Virginia, Maine, Wyoming to a certain extent.
I feel like there are issues that are more motivating, that are more top of mind.
I'm not saying it's the only issue. I'm just saying I think it does make a big difference, especially.
I think girlfriend is right. I think it's it's not like super compelling. It's not like It's not like one of those issues that gets people fired up, but it's like real policy about things that are important. That's why his team is doing this, because it's real. It's not fucking red meat for anybody. He's trying to appeal to those people, maybe people who aren't like hyper partisan.
Because I feel like people now are still feeling pressures from inflation, and I do think that one of the things that's most salient, most pressing on people's minds is the stuff with this year's Pride Month.
Yeah, in June in particular.
Yeah, again, like I said, I was out in California a couple weeks ago talking to my friends that are not super politically active, and they are talking about the things that are going on in schools and stuff that's going on at Target, and that's something
the controversies that you and your people have manufactured out of thin air.
Kids and parents are laser focused on the thing that is going to most make them anxious or concerned about their kids, and I think that kind of stuff is the stuff that, if he were going to be able to produce a compelling message that could help his numbers, I feel like that's where it would be. And I don't think that he is in a place where, or I don't think the Democrats at all are in a place where they could actually say, look, we do condemn these types of things. And I think that's
which types of things?
One of the reasons why he's got such bad poll numbers.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast.
These people, the only one that said anything that made any fucking sense was the gal on that. She was like, hey, actually, this is important. The broadband service and lack of it in a lot of communities is important. It's not that you don't have internet. It's that it's a fucking unreliable. That's the problem. It's not that it isn't there. It's that for a lot of people, it's unreliable. A lot of people are still getting their internet via DSL, which is over fucking phone lines. It's getting better, but if you live outside of the city or the suburbs or whatever, in a lot of cases, you're in real trouble. You're in real trouble. And there are places that have done a really good job where there's municipal Wi-Fi, or the county has propped up Wi-Fi, or the county or the state has pressured internet companies to extend their service out to people. But that's not everywhere. Like they were talking about West Virginia. Yeah, that's not West Virginia, right? Maybe more, they were talking about New Hampshire. Maybe in New Hampshire, it might be better because there's the socioeconomic status of people there is different than that of West Virginia. Anyway, here's Vivek Ramaswamy, who's also running for president as a Republican. He thinks that Republicans are going to vote for a guy named Vivek. If he was a Democrat and he was a good candidate, I'd vote for him. But I don't think Republicans are going to vote for this guy. Also, I think he's just running for the intellectual dark web, if we're being honest.
Just say a few words about you having that on your list, that truth is a good thing to seek.
Yeah, truth is the North Star of not only this campaign, I think it's the North Star of the values that undergird this country. The First Amendment, I think, is founded on truth. The Establishment Clause, which actually prevents the establishment of a single religion in the United States, was all about actually protecting.
It prevents the establishment of any religion, not a single one. You can't establish all of them either.
Instead, paving the way for free speech and open debate, also included in the First Amendment. So I think part of this is woven into our Constitution because it's a theory about the pursuit of truth itself. The path to truth runs through free speech and open debate. That's how we do it on earth. In a divine kingdom of heaven, it may reveal itself in a different way, but on earth, when we live in the
Heaven's
world that you and I live in currently, Dr. Paul, we sort that out. The last best path that we have to get there is free speech and open debate. And I think that is enshrined in our Constitution. And so in many ways, that's what motivates me.
Well, the free speech is, but the open debate part is kind of up for interpretation, right? Because what if I don't want to debate somebody? Then I guess we're not having an open debate. Then what?
Just to bring it to a practical level, one of the things that I'm doing in this campaign is speaking the truth, at least my beliefs, unapologetically. And if that's the right political strategy, great. It'll be for the people of this country to decide, and I'll be the next president of the United States in January 2025. But I would rather lose that election and still speak what the truth is at every step of the way than to play some political snakes and ladders. And I think that's part of what's actually had
It'll be shoots and ladders.
This campaign to get it off the ground in the early days.
Yeah, the more I
Yeah, that guy's like, he almost said "speak my truth," which is some like crystal healing energy shit. But he caught himself and he said "speak my opinion" or "my views on things," which was better than saying "speak my truth," I suppose, because that would have been like, oh, dude, you don't have to do that. You don't have to speak your truth. You don't run an artisan cupcake shop. All right, not a big fan of Mike Pence, but I think he handled this as well as you probably could have, all things considered. Here he is at what appears to be a campaign event. Mike Pence doesn't have a chance either.
If it wasn't for your vote, we would not have Joe Biden in the White House.
Right.
Joe Biden shouldn't be there. And all those wonderful things that you and Trump were doing together would be continuing, and this country would be on the right path. Do you ever second guess yourself? That was a constitutional right that you had to send those votes back to the states.
The Constitution of the United States in Article 2 says the job of the Vice President is to serve as the presiding officer of a joint session where you open and count the votes. Don't take my word for it. Go read the Constitution. Not really. I say this with great affection and respect. The Constitution is very clear. My job was to oversee a session of Congress where objections could be heard, and I made sure that objections would be recognized. So we would hear whatever evidence or whether debate there was, but the Constitution says you open and count the votes, no more, no less. The Constitution affords no authority for the Vice President or anyone else to reject votes or return votes to the states. Never been done before, should never be done in the future. I'm sorry, ma'am, but that's actually what the Constitution says. No Vice President in American history ever asserted the authority that you have been convinced that I had. But I want to tell you, with all due respect, I said when I announced, President Trump was wrong about my authority that day, and he's still wrong.
Yeah, I don't like Mike Pence, but fucking that's the right answer when someone comes at him like that. He's like, I did not have that authority. He's like, this is my interpretation of the Constitution. I don't like Mike Pence, and I'm glad he has no chance of winning the presidency ever because he's terrifying. He is a competent politician, and he is a terrifying person. So pretty glad that he has no chance. But he did handle that very well. If you ask your band at your religious event or your Christian nationalist event or whatever, if you ask the band to play the national anthem, make sure they know how to play the national anthem.
I want him to play our great national anthem, and then we're going to partake together. Let's all stand. Come on, we should honor God at this point. Come on, let's honor our country.
They don't know it. Keyboardist. Look at the keyboardist. Is anybody in the crowd laughing?
Thank you, Lord. This great land, the land of the free, and the home of the brave.
Yeah. Somebody in chat's like, I refuse to stand for the national anthem, but since that wasn't it, I'd stand up for that shit. I don't know. Maybe it was a remix. Here's Tucker Carlson looking a little haggard, and doing what he does, making up little stories, lying, and this part lying about January 6th, of course. So you're just looking a little disheveled, just a little disheveled.
And that was a tip-off to me. I mean, I had no thought in my head as I watched this happen on television and in the subsequent weeks that U.S. law enforcement or military agencies had anything to do with it. That never crossed my mind. I never thought that it was a false flag or anything like that. I'm not a conspiracist by temperament.
Wait, what?
I never thought that. And then I interviewed the chief of the Capitol Police, Stephen Sund, in an interview that was never aired on Fox, by the way. I was fired before it could air. I'm going to interview him again. But Stephen Sund was the totally non-political, worked for Nancy Pelosi. I mean, this was not some right-wing activist. He was the chief of the Capitol Police on January 6th. And he said, oh, yeah. That crowd was filled with federal agents. What? Yes. Well, he would know, of course, because he was in charge of security at the site. So the more time has passed, now it's been...
Yeah, somebody in chat said he looks a little like Russell J. Gould in that, and I'm not gonna argue. He does have a little bit. I was waiting for him to start talking about the Postal Service and the Galaxy and stuff like that. But I don't know. Maybe the chief of the Capitol Police is cooked? I don't know. I've never met the chief of the Capitol Police. Maybe it's the former chief of the Capitol Police, or maybe that never happened. Who knows? So everybody heard about the incident where there was supposedly or allegedly or whatever some cocaine at the White House, which I can get with that. I'd love to do a rail off of some famous fucking statue or some shit in the White House. That would be fantastic. I'd have to never talk about it for a while, but that'd be great. Anyway, actually, here's somebody on Fox News suggesting that they planted it themselves to distract from the economy.
So does all of this, what billows up for Joe? So they're writing off the age issue. That's not, I mean, they're basically saying that's not an issue.
Doing their best.
It would have to be something that really came to light that made him, that exposed the Biden crime family. I mean, at this point, it would have to be something that rose to a level of a Watergate, which we're already way past that.
We're so far past that. And the problem, and this is the problem with all this, it's so bad, and it gets so bad to the point that I think a lot of people start to tune it out, and they're like, well, this isn't really
exactly right.
And then they get away with murder. And quite frankly, I was sort of half joking when I said that I thought that the White House press office planted the cocaine just so they wouldn't have to talk about like the economy and everything else. But they would rather talk about Hunter Biden, the crackhead.
Do you think so?
Oh, they would much rather talk about that than they would rather defend his record.
Sure.
And to run on the real genuine corruption that runs deep through the entire
because
Biden
Hunter's
family.
like, they can say, well, that's just the drug addict
he's
over here.
He's a crackhead, whatever.
Interesting.
Hookers, crack, that's what they want to talk about. Even as they sort of punt it to the lawyers. Also, they can, by punting it to his lawyers, they can sort of pretend like they don't have to talk about it.
Yeah, and then just say it's the Hatch Act.
The Hatch Act. It's their new catch-all
it's
phrase.
Incredible.
So I don't know the details of this, but there's like a trace amount of cocaine that could get somewhere by any method. People who don't even do cocaine might have brought in a trace amount of cocaine somehow. Who knows? And actually, I think it's kind of cool. I mean, coke's bad for you, and I don't think anybody in the chat should do coke. But it's kind of is what it is. Anyway, don't worry. Newsmax actually thinks it was Kamala Harris's cocaine, not for whatever reason.
Hi, everybody. This is the White House, of course, from a side view. Right next to the White House is the West Wing, where all the senior administration officials have offices. The Oval Office is there. And this is the White House and the West Wing and some cocaine. Yeah, you know the story by now. Still in.
Is that a picture of it?
We all pretty much know it's Hunter's. However, there are some other possibilities. It might be theoretical, might be a 1/10000000th of a chance, but I think there's a chance.
Everything is in context. My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live.
This to me doesn't strike me as the mannerisms of somebody who's under the influence of cocaine.
Before you.
Okay, so it would explain a lot. Probably not her. Again, I'm going with Hunter. I'm also going with this. We're not getting a straight story from the White House. Again, that's not the kind of operation that Joe Biden runs as president. And, well, why would he? Why would he be straight with the American people now when he hasn't been his entire political career? From time to time, it's important to remind everybody about how this guy arrived on the national scene. I mean, in a big way. The first time the whole country got a look at this guy when he was running for president the first time, we were disgusted, quite frankly.
Well, he's the president now. If it's trace amounts of cocaine, it could just fucking come from anywhere. And if I were in charge of the fucking White House, I'd be like, just don't talk about this. It was like 3 specks of cocaine, or what people believe is cocaine. It's like, this is stupid. There's cocaine on fucking almost all of our currency. Up next is a case of be careful what you wish for. Do you remember during the pandemic that people were bragging, a lot of right-leaning people and a lot of people on Fox were bragging about how, all the people from San Francisco and Los Angeles and New York, they're moving to Texas and Florida and they're moving to like red states. Well, careful what you wish for, right? Texas is getting closer and closer and closer to 50-50. And, you keep getting all them San Francisco and San Jose and Los Angeles people moving to Texas. Well, they vote. But don't worry. Greg Gutfeld thinks that they shouldn't be allowed to vote. Change states, can't vote.
Charlie, Biden has a 60% disapproval rating regarding the economy, and 52% of Americans believe they're drowning in debt since he took office. How can this man possibly go out there and say, I'm making a difference in your life?
Well, because, shamelessness is the greatest virtue of any politician. If you can go out there and say with a straight face what everybody can look at and say that this is nuts, then you have a great leg up with in politics. But it is sort of interesting. It's so hard to get a 55-45 break in polls on things in this country. Elections come down to 50-50. The idea that you have a 60-40 break or a 60 and less than 40 break on the economy, I think tells you an awful lot about how much people are hurting. And even, when you look at something like gas prices, obviously and they boast, well, the gas prices have come down from the really, really high highs that I employed. While that's true, they have come down from those highs. It's still higher. And people are still paying for it. And that's why inflation is absolutely destroying people's checkbooks at home. And so he can lie about it all he wants to, but people at home know it. And these are including a lot of Democrats and independents who voted for him.
Jessica, there's $100 billion wealth migration that they were talking about that tilts the U.S. economy, the center of it, to the south. And there's no evidence, I thought this was interesting, that reproductive rights chipping away at the influx of people moving south. I thought that was unusual.
It is unusual. And we'll see how this plays out over time. I do know that it is a factor in the decisions about where people will go to school, like when young people are applying to colleges. But I think it's wonderful that there are new boom towns and boom states, and I think that should be celebrated. I also think that it would be great then if there are these southern Republican-controlled states that they start paying their fair share and take care of Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Kentucky, because I'm sick of taking care of them from up here in New York or in California, because blue states pay the highest taxes, and then those federal dollars get shipped down south to make sure that they have decent schools, they have health care.
Whoa, that's usually an argument that liberals make that I don't like, because I'm like, actually, I don't mind. I don't mind that I live in a state that is an economic juggernaut, California. And I don't mind that some of our tax dollars goes to help out states that are economically depressed. I get mad at a lot of libs for that, because I'm like, oh, that's shitty, dude. That's like real shitty. You're like saying that you want people in Republican-controlled states and states that are, lower socioeconomic class. You want the people there to suffer because you don't like what their government does.
Etc. So by all means, South Carolina, Nancy Mace, who wants to take credit for things she voted against, please give some money to Kentucky, help them out. Tommy Tuberville, talk about you all the time. You should be paying more and taking care of your own people instead of feeding off of Democrats that pay higher taxes.
Oh, go ahead.
That was repulsive.
Greg.
So true.
Yeah, actually, that's horrible. Fuck that shit. I disagree. The reason they don't like it is because what she said is true about the money, and they don't like that. I don't like it because it's shitty. Because it's gross, actually, to think, oh, these people should actually suffer with horrible infrastructure because their state, doesn't have like the largesse of a state like California. No, that's terrible. But that they didn't groan for the same reason that I kind of groaned.
Please, leaders in other states, just completely, assault your taxpayers the way we assault ours.
But why shouldn't we pay for them?
No,
but that's not where all the money is going.
That's not the argument. The point is, we are getting as a New Yorker, this is astounding. What are we? We pay the most. Maybe California pays more. It's ridiculous, and we get nothing out of it. So I think that's
but the thing is, Greg Gutfeld never going to leave New York City, right?
I think that's what you're talking about is a ridiculous point, and I don't have an answer for it.
That actually happens more than you'd like to admit.
Yes. I want to talk about the migration thing. This is the triumph of something I call federalism. Have you heard of that phrase? States experimenting and competing with each other, right? With other states. Some do it one way, some do it another. This is why we won't have a civil war, because people have choice to move wherever they want to go. And if one state speaks to you in a different way, that's the great way of doing it. And that's how the Roe versus Wade reversal is so easy to explain to people that get so upset about it. It's like, it was taking the decision away from me, the judge, and giving it to you, the person. That's all it's about. And that's what states are all about, is that the decisions are closer to you than they are to the government. And so perhaps
But the argument against that is it's easier to buy politicians and exert undue influence on politicians that represent a lower number of people.
Abortion on demand might flourish, and a state with more restrictions won't. But that's the great thing about federalism. Anybody can do it. The whole point is that you fight with your feet and not with your guns, and state rights guarantee that.
But so one of the problems, though, with this migration is that and people talk about they worry that voters are going to vote the same way when they move to these red states. Another concern is the fact that they're deadbeat voters. They voted for all this nonsense in the state they left, and then they leave and they don't get stuck with the bill.
They shouldn't be allowed to vote.
No, they shouldn't be allowed to vote until they've paid back all of the taxes they voted for in California or New York.
Wait, what?
All the taxpayers in California and New York are leaving. The people who pay the most taxes, you're not going to have a tax base in New York.
But many of them voted for the taxes in these places.
And then they leave.
And I do.
That's not that. This is all bullshit. Like, imagine, I was going to move to Nevada, but they want me to finish paying for every ballot initiative that I voted for in California before I can vote in Nevada. Do I still get to vote in California? Do I get to vote for president, on federal stuff? What a fucking dumb idea. No, if you move, that's why this is a nation. If you move somewhere, you just vote there. Oh, this is great. Absolutely fucking great. This is Pearl Davis. I don't know if anybody knows who Pearl Davis is. I feel like she's going to start showing up on our on this channel a little bit more going forward. Some people are calling her the woman Andrew Tate. Here's her on Piers Morgan talking about how women shouldn't be able to vote.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Pearl Davis has racked up a legion of online followers and plenty of breathless newspaper coverage by sharing her incendiary views on modern feminism. The New York Post called her the female Andrew Tate. So is she tapped into genuine female pushback to the excesses of wokery, or is she just an attention seeker? We'll find out.
I think it's this. She's just seeking attention.
Sent her viral.
A lot of people think I'm insane because I
do.
Women should vote.
This is we did an episode of the Intellectual Dollar Tree with her where she went on the Trigonometry podcast, and those guys were like, "Whoa!" Like Konstantin Kisin and Non Oliver were a little bit taken aback by some of the shit she was saying.
I'm crazy for this opinion. If anything, this is probably my most extreme opinion. 90% of women have been on birth control. 1 out of 3 women has had an abortion. 1 out of 3 women has an STD. Average.
Wait, 1 out of 3 women has an STD. That's STI. 1 out of 3 women doesn't have an STI.
Over 5, so that your average wife has slept with over 5 people.
Okay.
95% of women are not virgins on their wedding day.
She would be astonished by like the body count of some of my friends. My God.
So I understand the complaint.
Okay, well, Pearl joins me now alongside political journalist Ava Santini, who was nodding furiously along there to everything she heard. Right, Pearl, you've be called the female Andrew Tate. How do you plead?
Well, I take it as a compliment. You know, I'm a fan of Andrew Tate.
Of everything he says?
It depends what we're talking about. But overall, I think he's got a good message. I think he's good for young men.
Okay, look, you're talking about women predominantly, which is why you've got this big following. And your view is that modern feminism is deeply flawed. I would argue a lot of your proposals, like taking the vote away from women, are deeply regressive.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you want to remove, just from yourself, the right to vote?
Well, what happened was I had the same view, right? Back when I started, I was like, why? I found out that only 5% of women wanted the right to vote. And I couldn't figure out, like, why would women not? No, it's true. It's true. If you look it up.
At the time.
The other lady is, that's the appropriate. The other lady's doing the right thing, though. The other lady already, I like her. She's just laughing at her.
I mean, that's what they say. But, you know, I started reading their writings, right? And what I found out was that the reason a lot of women advocated for it was because they believed it was the beginning of the breakdown of the family. You know, before you became one in marriage, 85% of people were married. And, you know, I hate to say it, but they were right. What has happened 100 years later?
What's that got to do with them having the vote?
Well, it also goes back to responsibility. Again, men are 80 to 90% of the military. They run all of the infrastructures that make society run. So I just think if we
why is that way?
Then be equal. Do 50% of the hard jobs. Be 50% of the military. In the U.S., they're fined $250,000 if they don't join selective service, which is essentially the draft.
Okay, but specifically on the vote, what would having the right to vote have to do with family cohesion, for example?
Well, because again, before you weren't trying to divide a family. It was one family unit. You had one vote for the family. I mean, I don't think it's good for a family to have 2 votes.
Ava, your mouth seems to have dropped about.
No, do you know what it's sort of like?
I know.
It's just sort of a bit galaxy brain. I feel like, you know, the stats that you're putting down are perhaps correct in some universe.
Which stats?
They just kind of don't really add up. I mean, just to take you back to the to the women's writings that you've allegedly read. I mean,
allegedly. What do you mean allegedly?
At the time that you're talking about, you know, women weren't really allowed to.
You know what though? Blondie didn't interrupt you. That blonde lady didn't interrupt you while you were talking. Pearl, shut the fuck up. Let this lady. Come on.
Yes, they were.
Right.
Yes, they
So
were. That's
actually,
incorrect. The first
okay,
female
what year are we
property. The
talking
first
about?
female property owner was in the 1600s. The idea that women couldn't work and couldn't.
I'm so sorry, but that would be inherited property.
The first female millionaire was in the late 1800s.
And was that inherited?
No, it wasn't. It was self-made.
Yes,
it was.
Self-made.
Yes, it
and
was.
She never inherited land.
Yes, she did not
and
inherit
what law
it.
permitted that?
What
law permitted that?
Well, there was no law. I mean, there's always been women that were influential in history.
Let's get on to the vote. So what I don't understand is, you know, a part of your message, I've researched you today, and hang on a minute.
Okay.
You know, your big push is that you care about men and you don't think that men are getting enough of a say. But
I care about
hang
women
on,
too.
I haven't
Care
made
about
the point
women
yet, because of feminism, okay? What I wonder is when you start making calls out like repeal the 19th, women shouldn't be allowed to vote, how is that helping young men? Because these young men have women in their lives, they have mothers, they have sisters, they have teachers, and they turn around, they don't know how to act around women because you're giving them him license to be misogynistic.
I wouldn't call it misogynistic.
Fuck yeah.
I say be equal. So again,
I
men
think
do
that's what
all of
most
the
feminists are
Well,
saying.
then okay, I'd love for the feminists. Please apply for the oil rigs. Please go do the hard jobs in society. They're open. They're hiring because I don't equate for. I don't think men or women are equal until we do the equal work. So no, listen. Go apply to be on the oil rigs. Go be a plumber. Go be an electrician. Go be on the.
You think there aren't women in those fields?
And then we should have equal rights. But until feminists are willing to do
But then on the flip side of this, I bet if a man wants to be a nurse, she probably calls him a pussy, right?
I don't believe we should have the freedom without the responsibility.
Okay, well, I don't think that I'm physically built for that. You might be, but I'm absolutely
That's
not.
a bit-
No, but you
Wow.
said you were
Wow.
a volleyball.
Wow.
You said you were a volleyball player, and so you've got more strength than I do. I don't think
But
that
I don't
can
have more
do those
strength. I don't have
jobs.
more strength than
But
the
I'm not
average
going to take
man.
your right away to
I don't
do
have
it.
I don't have more strength than the average man. But again, it goes back to go be a plumber. You want to be equal, go be equal.
You also, but you want divorce to be made illegal.
Yes.
Why?
Yes, because I don't think what we have today is really marriage. What is marriage? It's for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. That's what marriage is.
I mean, but that's not really what the marriage contract is. That's like a nicety that gets said at your wedding. The marriage contract doesn't say shit about that.
But feminists have ruined marriage for the people that actually believe in marriage.
How?
When there's a 50% divorce rate and the average marriage
Why is that all
8
down to the
years.
women, though?
I didn't say that it was all down to the women.
So why
But
feminists ruin it?
you asked why I want divorce to be banned.
Yeah.
Can I finish
Yeah.
that first? So I'm saying, the people that believe in divorce, go be in long-term relationships. Leave marriage for the people that actually believe in for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, in sickness and in health, till death do us part.
But doesn't the sanctity of marriage also rely on the woman being a virgin? So you wouldn't be able to get married.
What do you mean?
Well, you've spoken quite openly about how you're not a virgin, and so if you want to preserve that sanctity of marriage, then I just think that you're upholding standards that you don't actually live by.
And that's a fair complaint. I wish I was. But, we can't go back. I don't know what you want me to say.
Yeah, but I just don't think.
But then what about the people who get into a marriage and then wish they hadn't?
Be here and you get to be paid for your views, and you're telling other women that they shouldn't be allowed to.
I think.
And they should abide by some-
Hang on. Okay, if I may, at some stage, jump in. Isn't the whole point of being a feminist, though, that women are entitled to have their own views?
Absolutely, and
so she's perfectly entitled to her views.
Yeah, but you can't.
You might not like them.
But I'm here to challenge
But isn't she
them.
exercising her right as a? Are you?
Well, yeah. But this is, and I don't think Pierce really believes what he's saying here. Pierce Morgan's generally a piece of shit, but he's pretty good at dealing with dumbass American extremists. And he doesn't really believe this, but there is this notion that free speech or whatever means that I talk and you shut up, and that's not really what free speech is. They are engaging in free speech right now. I forget. Pearl is saying what she's saying, and then the person who presumably works with Piers Morgan is saying what she's saying, and this is all fine.
No, I am not.
Really?
No, I wouldn't. Don't go that far.
You don't want to be a feminist?
No, because I think if feminists really believed in equality, but you guys don't, I would love for you. There is an oil rig hiring. There is an engineering.
I would actually
firm
love to see
hiring.
Ava Santana on that.
An engineering firm? Do you know what happened? Oh my God, women are in the engineering field, and they talk about just discrimination, being turned over for promotions they think they should get. That's one of the things HK talks about a lot during the after show on for Intellectual Dollar Tree, is that when he was working in some of these bigger tech companies, that some of them were kind of shitty if you weren't a white guy or like an Asian or Indian guy. Everybody else kind of got passed over for stuff.
Seriously. There is a building being built next to my building. Go do it, feminists. Go do it. And me, I'm doing the same job that I'm doing right now.
When you find the man you want to get married to, are you saying you will be with that man whatever happens the rest of your life?
Yes, for the vows that we're supposed to live by.
How do you know you can keep them?
But that's not in the marriage contract. That's fucking a poem, essentially.
I mean, I think it's a choice. And that's the thing, women are so willing to leave marriages because they're not happy. This is not about happiness. The most important thing is the children. And the problem is we have a modern society where it's me, my feelings, leave when I feel like it, instead of doing what's best for the kids.
Ava, I've got to say, It's a little like listening to Andrew Tate, where some of it I really don't agree with. I don't agree with the vote stuff. When I hear things like that, I think there'll be a lot of people, especially older generation women perhaps, who think, you know what, she's got a point.
Well, I mean, I believe in agency, so I think that if a woman is going to look after her children in divorce, that's absolutely fine. I also believe in your right to speak your mind about it. What I don't understand,
I'd like to
what
say,
I don't
even before the
understand-
1920s,
Do you know what I mean?
women could speak openly. This idea that like women couldn't talk the last 500 years, there have been women
I know,
throughout
but the American
history
state
that have
education
been-
system has
that have
failed
been-
before, and it's failing now.
There have been women throughout history that have read, written, and been very influential in society.
Okay.
So this idea like women could never do it.
Do you know
don't
what
believe
I
it.
don't understand though is when it gets spiteful, okay? Because you put down a few arguments that I think are perfectly, like, you know, they're kind of evangelical and they're Christian, but those are your right to say it. What I don't understand is when it kind of seeps into this sort of, you call women fat, you say that they shouldn't have
Are they
abortions,
fat?
you say that
Are
they
they
have
fat?
STDs. You know,
I mean, the question is, are they fat? Yes or no?
why pass
the
that kind
average
of
American
judgment?
woman is 170 pounds. That's objectively overweight.
I mean, let's be honest. We now celebrate morbid obesity.
Wait, what?
Some kind of body positive thing, and it is complete nonsense. So, actually, on that point again, there's a bit of truth in
And
that.
this is the problem. This is the problem.
How have we come to celebrate morbid obesity as body positive? It's nonsense.
We're not talking about morbid obese. I was actually watching your podcast earlier, and you spoke to someone who was, I would say, probably a size 12, and you called her fat, obese, and a divorcee.
She was fat, obese, and a divorcee.
wasn't.
I mean, like, I don't know what to say. This is the thing, women, we don't want to live in reality.
Yeah, size 12 is just like a regular woman.
Was she fat? Yes. Was she a divorcee? Yes. These things are just objective facts.
Okay, I'm going to have to objectively.
And she insulted me first. They always do.
I'm going to have to objectively end the debate, but it was an interesting conversation. I think we should get you two.
Oh my God, yeah, we're gonna end up covering more of this Pearl Davis, I think, in the coming months here, because she's getting more popular among like men's rights activist types. So this next story is we don't really have a palate cleanser this week, but I think this next story is about as close as we're gonna get. This is weird. I'm just gonna let it roll. This is some weird shit.
Yeah, these neighbors were just completely shocked because they never even knew that Rudy Farias was missing, let alone for 8 years. They tell me that they knew him as Dolph, short for Rudolph. They told me they see him often, they text with him, they even hang out with him.
Like, I'm confused right now. I'm like, what's going on?
These neighbors are shocked after seeing reports that missing 25-year-old Rudy Farias was found after missing for 8 long years. Court records reveal his mother lives a few houses down from them, and they tell us her son lives there and they hang out with him often.
He used to come in my garage and
chill
with my cousin, my son, my daughter. She's at work right now, but yeah, boy ain't been missing since he was no.
Both say they've spoken to him in the last 5 months and even text. Other neighbors say they've seen him living there for years.
We were chilling, laughing, good time.
Some days he go to the park and sit in the park around the corner by himself.
Houston police say they got a call on Thursday about a man sleeping outside a church in Magnolia Park. He had something on him with a family member's identification, police say, and that's how they were able to contact his mom. Then Texas for the Missing tweeted out over the weekend that man was Rudy Farias, who had been missing since 2015 when he didn't return back from a walk with his dogs. His mother shared pictures with ABC 13 of her son at the hospital, telling us he was found with cuts and bruises and even cried to me over the phone, saying she believed her son had been kidnapped and hasn't seen him in years. His mother told officials at the time of his disappearance that he suffered from depression and PTSD since his brother died in a motorcycle accident in 2011.
Did that even really happen?
Something these neighbors say he spoke about.
He said he had lost a brother in a motorcycle accident. I know when he's thinking about his brother, he really wouldn't come hang out. He'd go sit back there in the back, the woods, by himself.
And now they're trying to wrap their heads around why he or his mom would ever say he's been missing for the past 8 years. And I just got off the phone with his mother just a few minutes ago, and I asked the mother about who.
I couldn't find the rest of the clip, unfortunately, but what a weird story. I wonder what's going on. What's really going on there? If anybody finds out what's really going on there, could you please let me know? Because that's a pretty fucking crazy story. Here's Here's someone named Rivka Brown asking a property investor what it's like being a landlord. And apparently, I just kind of said what they meant.
So yeah, you're a property investor. Tell me a bit about that.
We are working closely with landlords to help them get better return of investment for their properties.
How much might you be able to increase a landlord's rent, for example? Like what kinds of rent increases are you able to gain through sourcing higher value tenants?
From experience, possibly between 10 and 20% higher than what they get now.
Wow. Okay. And so does that ever involve needing to ask tenants to leave who can't pay the kinds of rents that you're that you're asking?
That's another beautiful thing, actually, that we present to landlords, because they deal directly with us. They don't need to deal with any tenants whatsoever, and this is a big thing for tenants.
So you do the dirty work.
That's correct. We deal with tenants. We deal with cleaning, with small maintenance. Basically, they just sit down, relax, have their holidays and whatever time with families, do whatever they want, and we pay guaranteed rent at a certain time.
So you ensure that really being a landlord isn't a job, doesn't need to be work. It can just be a holiday.
I think a property investor like me is a perfect solution for landlords.
Well, there we go. There we have it. That's different than a property management company, by the way. These people invest in the property too, so they make some money off of it as well. But what a horrible thing to just say in front of a camera. Like, I guess if you believe that or whatever, fucking you have a right to believe whatever the fuck you want. But like, why would you say that in front of a camera? You don't know who it is that's asking you questions. Well, but I mean, glad to see it kind of come out like that. Here is this is the state superintendent of education for Oklahoma talking, well, not answering a question, but really glad the person's asking it.
Tulsa race massacre not fall under your definition of CRT?
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't address that part. I would never tell a kid that because of your race, because of your color of your skin, or your gender, or anything like that, you are less of a person or are inherently racist. That doesn't mean you don't judge the actions of individuals. Oh, you can absolutely. Historically, you should. This was right. This was wrong. They did this for this reason. But to say it was inherent in that because of their skin is where I say that is critical race theory. You're saying that a race defines a person. I reject that. So I would say you be judgmental of the issue, of the action, of the content, of the character of the individual, absolutely. But let's not tie it to the skin color and say that the skin color determined it.
One more follow-up. How does the Tulsa race massacre not fall under your definition of CRT?
I answered it. That's my answer. And again, I feel like...
The Tulsa race massacre was a race massacre. How does it not fall under CRT?
I've answered your question. I do appreciate very respectful.
The 100 years of silence was about race. How does that not fall? How does that not qualify for CRT?
I appreciate the question. I appreciate the question. I'm not going to answer it. You dumb fuck. Anyway, this might be the palate cleanser. I don't know. This is the best conservative comedy I've ever seen.
I identify as a Chevy Silverado, and my pronouns are vroom vroom. Gen Z, more like Gen Lazy. Vegans are coming for your meat. And I don't mean hamburgers. Cancel culture is ruining comedy, you know? I mean, you're telling me the N-word isn't funny? Anyways, if anyone's hiring, if the woke mind virus isn't real, why won't anyone sleep with me? Quid pro Joe Beijing bribing. I cannot stand my wife. Everyone is such a snowflake now. That's why I go on a 500 tweet rant every single day. You're not allowed to be straight anymore. You're not allowed to be white anymore. You're not allowed to be a man anymore. I hate my wife. I've had COVID 30 times and I cannot figure out why. The vaccine will make you gay. Everyone thinks I love Donald Trump, but I'm not a Trump guy, you know? I just agree with everything he's ever said or done or thought. I punched a hole in the drywall the other day. My only friend is Sean Hannity. True story. I was so famous in the 90s.
Best conservative comedy routine ever. Up next, we got this is from Christian Nightmares on Twitter. Shout out to Christian Nightmares. This is you might think you know about the Statue of Liberty, but it turns out that you don't. You don't know shit about the Statue of Liberty, but this dude on some weird like end times prophecy podcast or whatever, he knows the score about the Statue of Liberty.
Do you know who the Statue of Liberty actually is? No. Lucifer. The Statue of Liberty has 7 points on its crown because he indulges in all the 7 sins of the world. And on top of that, it's holding a torch representing the light bearer, Lucifer.
Isn't it supposed to be representative of freedom?
But freedom of what? I don't know. Exactly. It's freedom from God. It's the Luciferian agenda that's being played out for centuries now.
I mean, I don't know if that was satire. I don't know who the dude is here or whatever, but if the way things are going, I have a feeling that that's not satire, that dude's fucking dead serious. And it's, the satanic panic, it just doesn't really go away. It just cycles and changes a little bit. Now, fucking Statue of Liberty's in on it. Here we go. Got Steve Deese. You could imagine, Steve Deese doesn't like queer people.
But they are supposed to be referees. Scalia's looked at, and now Clarence Thomas is, great ideologues, but as originalists, they're like, and Scalia is famous for saying you're supposed to not be comfortable with maybe even the morality of some of your decisions because you're just there to referee this ballgame. You didn't invent the ballgame.
The reason why we're comfortable with these decisions is because what's being adjudicated now, when Scalia is talking about how far do we pass on Miranda rights and habeas corpus to people who are obviously terrible people, and we're going to maybe let them go because a higher principle was violated when we know they might do worse later on. That argument of conscience is happening within the framework of the Constitution's intent.
Yes.
And if we're arguing within the framework of the Constitution's intent, then yes, there will be times that you will not be comfortable with the rulings you will make in defense of that intent. We're not arguing that right now.
Right.
Now we're arguing because young people vote Democrat and they have a lot of debt.
He's pointing to himself when he says young people. This guy's probably my age.
To pass that debt,
maybe a little older,
that don't marry people that don't typically vote Democrat and do most of the living and dying in the country. That's not an argument within the intent of the scheme of the Constitution. That's an attempt to unravel it, right? Because I want to make sodomy mainstream in America. I'm going to force you against your own conscience to use your intellectual abilities and properties to promote my message when I would never demand that somebody black show up and perform their gifts and skills for a group of white nationalists or a Klan meeting. That's not.
Wait, what is it? What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
Hey, man. In order for there to be a free society, that's why what David French said about blessing of liberty. No, okay. The public acknowledgement in a public building. We can argue with whether having a red light district where certain people with that are undesirables and live in raincoats, okay, have a place where they can essentially.
A red light district is not where people just go around flashing you in a raincoat. That's still illegal in the red light district.
The purge, all right, and we can argue how far to prosecute that because and what would be the backlash against that. What French was arguing was public buildings used as places to debauch our children is not that calculation. It's not. That is state sanctioned debauchery. That's something completely and totally different. And that's why UPenn did and many others did. Yes. All right. That's the stuff we're doing now. Instead of, because we are concerned about creating an all-powerful state that may undermine the Constitution's intent, are there certain things we need to allow, even if it's an imperfect outcome, because of the larger question here? Instead, it is now we will use the state to undo the scheme and purpose of the Constitution itself. Those are the issues we're arguing now. Yeah.
None of what you said made any fucking sense, dude. I had a little bit of a hard time following that, but what I got from it is not a big fan of queer people. Doesn't like gay people. And thinks that we should all just go to the red light district and fucking wear just a raincoat? That's weird. What if it's cold out? So up next, we got, they're still talking about the gas stoves. I'm not kidding. I don't know why they're still talking about the gas stoves, but they're still talking about the gas stoves.
Look, we on our side spend a lot of time complaining about left-wing hypocrisy, but honestly, I think it's a huge waste of time. And the reason it's a waste of time is because the left doesn't care about hypocrisy. They don't care about being called hypocrites. They just plow on with their agenda. And because they don't care, there's no sense of shame or conscience on their part for their behavior. And because there's no sense of shame, there's no incentive to actually change their behavior. So complaining about hypocrisy is just talking ourselves into circles. This is not hypocrisy. This is hierarchy. This is the globalist elite ruling class, both here and abroad, imposing all of their insane regulations on the rest of us, while the rest of them just go.
Oh, it's the New World Order conspiracy theory.
Large, living their lives, partaking in all of it. So while they want to strip you of everything from the gas stoves in your kitchen to your freedom of speech, they have access to all of it, and they enjoy all of it, and they are lording it all over all of us.
Tudor, what do they expect us to do? I mean, like, honestly, what would they want us to actually cook things in? And don't.
Well, there are electric stoves.
Tell me that electricity doesn't, how do you generate electricity? Coal, nuclear? I mean,
nuclear and coal are very different
forces that actually move electricity forward. But of course, they want to take away your gas stoves at things that actually work and people like and enjoy.
Of course, it doesn't matter. It's just like electric vehicles. It doesn't matter if you can actually charge it. That's what you have to use from now on. But let's face it, Monica's right. It doesn't matter what they do. This is Gavin Newsom's French Laundry. This is John Kerry's private jets.
So the French Laundry thing, when they went to the French Laundry, Gavin Newsom and his friends were obeying all the laws of that county and the state laws. But it was a bad look.
Gretchen Whitmer's trip to Florida when no one was allowed to leave the state. They don't care. And until Republicans start holding them accountable come election time and actually putting this out on the airwaves, hey, let's not forget, they want to take this from you, but they think they should have it. We are not going to be beating them at this. So we need to make sure that people don't forget that these folks want to live the high life, live as elitists, and keep you down.
It really is about the power, isn't it? I mean, you mentioned that, Monica, but they want the power. But I don't understand their end game and why they think that this is appealing to the average American.
Well, they don't care about the average American. I think that much is clear. And it is all about power and control. And the end game, Jason and Tudor, is exactly this. They want to fundamentally.
Is that an Emmy behind her?
The United States. And in order to do that, in order to move us away from individual liberty and economic freedom, they have to transform us into a more collectivist, Marxist kind of model. The best and fastest way to get there is by attacking the energy sector, because that is the biggest lever available to them to leverage the U.S. economy into this new model. So by attacking fossil fuels, by putting the squeeze on electricity and everything that
you just said electricity.
Use, and that keeps the U.S. economy humming. By attacking that's the best way and most efficient way for the left to bring this country to its knees and then fundamentally transform it and then ultimately get to a one world style government with the globalist government.
Yo, just straight up fucking New World Order conspiracy theory. Just straight up.
All of it. But the only way that they can do that is by crushing the U.S. economy and, of course, flooding the zone with a wide open border and lawlessness and the breakdown of law and order and all of the rest. This is all part and parcel of a very deliberate plan to take down the United States of America.
So I don't think we're ever going to see her on Fox again, because Fox is like a kind of right-wing outlet, right? But they don't traffic in that New World Order conspiracy shit. They just don't. You don't see a lot of people on Fox talking about it. So I think you're never going to see her on Fox again. I could be wrong, but that's something they don't traffic in it. It's bad for business. Not necessarily that their audience is opposed to it, but the advertisers are like not there for that shit. And, Fox is in the business of selling ads, so. That is what it is. Here's Tiny Dancer Ben Shapiro. Gonna, split a bunch of tiny little hairs about discrimination against gay people.
Now, to be fair, there's confusion that arises when it comes to LGBT issues. Why? Well, because that's a question of self-identity. How would you even know if somebody walked into your business and they were gay unless they told you they were gay?
What if you assume that someone's gay and you discriminate against them based on that?
I mean, that is literally the only way that you would know. Or in fact, they asked you to do a message for gay marriage. Or they explained to you that they were married to another person of the same sex. There are a lot of people who have various characteristics who are gay. The gay community is, in fact, not quite as stereotypical as TV would make it out to be. Which means that very often, quote-unquote, discrimination against a gay person is not, in fact, discrimination against a gay person. It's discrimination against behavior that is conducted by a person who happens to be gay. That is not the same thing at all. And that's the point the court is making. This is, by the way, a major distinction that has never been properly drawn in the law, but needs to be drawn in the law. The gay rights movement has claimed they're the new civil rights movement. These are absolutely disparate movements. They are not alike in any way, shape, or form. The black civil rights movement was about the idea that you have an immutable characteristic that is not behaviorally based. Your race. It has nothing to do with your behavior. It has nothing to do with your feelings. You are black, whether you feel black or whether you don't feel black. Whether you, quote unquote, act black or whether you don't act black, obviously. In fact, there is no such thing as, quote unquote, acting black.
Ben, you have said a lot of weird things about the black community in the past and the way that they act, sir.
And stereotypes. That is not the same thing when it comes to issues of sexual orientation, which is about interior feeling. It is about behavior in the real world. And that is why putting LGBT as members of a quote-unquote protected class under anti-discrimination law starts to get into very dicey activity as far as forcing other people to accept a behavior, not an actual...
Which behavior, Ben?
Objective state of the world that is visible to everyone else. It's not quite the same thing.
Ben, I'm just curious what behaviors he thinks that we engage in that should allow a business to discriminate against us. Do you think we're like sucking dick in the lobby of the hotel or something? I don't know. I bet there's people who've been discriminated against for exhibiting what someone thinks is gay behavior, and they're not gay themselves. It's just that they, to some extent, fit some of the negative stereotypes about gay and lesbian people or LGBTQ plus people. I bet that happens, and I bet that's probably still illegal. Anyway, don't worry. We got Michael Knowles next, and he's going to tell us about Squishes on the right, and I am not looking forward to this.
The inevitable logical conclusion of the Pride movement was we're going to go into your kids' kindergarten and we're going to teach them wild ideologies about sex and gender and not only the relations between the sexes and within the sexes, but even one's understanding of human nature itself. And people have just said enough with that. The DeSantis campaign is capitalizing on this right now, and DeSantis is being pilloried, not just by the libs, but by the squishes on the right.
The squishes.
An ad that people are saying is homophobic. Here's the ad.
I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens.
But Caitlyn Jenner were to walk into Trump hanging out with Bruce Jenner.
Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner is a monster that probably killed someone with her car, but she's still Caitlyn Jenner.
Any bathroom she chooses.
That is correct. In the future, can transgender women compete in
Lady MAGA.
Yes.
Make America
Who's a drag queen who's pro-Trump. And then DeSantis comes out and just says no. You see all these like Sigma male memes, Patrick Bateman, DeSantis signs a draconian anti.
So Michael Knowles, we watched this ad last week on the show. Michael Knowles doesn't understand that most people aren't incredibly online and don't catch most of those references. And some people who are extremely online know those references came out of like the fucking men's rights movement and Gamergate. And it's like, well, do I really want to be like those people? Even a lot of conservative people are like, no, I don't want to be like the Gamergate weirdos.
LGBT bill. DeSantis enacts a wave of laws. You see the Chad meme guy, like super strong guy.
Has shut down.
DeSantis unstoppable.
Produced some of the harshest, most draconian laws that literally threaten trans existence.
Congratulations, Ron DeSantis. Mission accomplished. You win.
This governor does not care. DeSantis on a crusade. A real wolf had finally arrived, Wolf of Wall Street. So really leaning into this online Sigma male, socially...
Yeah, they're really leaning into alienating fucking most people.
No, we're not going to tolerate this rainbow pride stuff anymore. I think it's a great ad. One, because it's funny. It's a self-aware ad. I don't think anybody really believes that Ron DeSantis is going to be, instituting Sharia law and throwing homosexuals off rooftops, right? Nobody really believes that.
They always say this,
with all of its Sigma male, Patrick Bateman kind of vaporwave aesthetic, is showing people a real aspect of his political legacy and his accomplishments, which is we're not going to enshrine special protections for this disordered view of human nature. We're going to be nice to people. We're going to tolerate things within reason. But no, we're going to roll back the pride movement that's now made it all the way into your kid's kindergarten classroom. And it's really, really good. And he's smart to go after Trump on this because Trump is by far the most pro-LGBT LMNOP candidate that the GOP...
LMNOP? Get out of here. Come on, get another joke. Get another joke about us.
...has ever run for president. And I don't think this is because Trump is some crusader for gay rights or transgenderism or anything like that. I think it's because Trump is just...
a New Yorker. He's a New Yorker. I don't think Trump cares that much about gay people. I don't think he likes gay people. I don't think he doesn't like gay people.
He's just an old school normal guy who doesn't really care about this stuff, and he's willing to pander to different groups to get their votes. But I don't think you could call him a rainbow activist or anything like that. The reason this is a really good attack, though, on Donald Trump is it gives the Republican base a justification for abandoning Trump and embracing DeSantis. I'm not saying it's going to work, but it's one of the first.
It's not going to work.
Give the base that justification.
Only like a bunch of fucking incels are going to find that ad compelling.
Because right now, looking at the field, the real hardcore guys remain pro-Trump. It's just a fact. You might say that's not fair. You might say DeSantis is the more conservative candidate. Yeah, maybe that's all true. I don't know. I'm just saying the hardcore guys remain pro-Trump. And the more GOP establishment types, if they've got to pick between the two, are going for Ron DeSantis. So DeSantis has this establishment baggage, even if it just comes by virtue of the fact that he's the guy who's posing a real challenge to Trump right now. He's got to deal with that. He has to somehow answer the fact that the GOP establishment and the mainstream establishment more broadly is going softer on DeSantis than they are on Trump. This is one great way to do it. If he runs to the right of Trump on the social issues, specifically on the Rainbow Coalition, that will give the hardcore guys an opportunity to say, actually, if we really want to be subversive, if we really want to be edgy, we're going to follow this guy who's threatening the sexual revolution, which the libs hold very, very dear. And the other reason this works is because while the establishment is very pro-rainbow, the people broadly, including many Democrats, are not.
This is incorrect. This is incorrect. The polling says the other thing.
This is a real wedge issue between the elites of the uniparty and the people broadly, the few and the many. It's one of these great wedge issues. So really, really strong stuff for DeSantis. Now,
most Republicans do not want gay marriage repealed, for example.
Ad showing that DeSantis is tougher on LGBT activism than Trump. Does that make up a 30-point gap?
No.
I'm not sure about that, but it is still very early in the race. So if there is a chance for DeSantis, this is probably it.
DeSantis, that stuff, it just alienates people. Michael Knowles has no idea what he's talking about. He doesn't understand retail politics. You don't want to alienate people. And that weird internet shit is going to alienate people. Even people who might agree with them on the issues, they're going to get alienated by that. They're like, what the fuck was that ad? This is a fucking 4chan? All right. Well, I thought about watching this interview with Russell Brand and RFK Jr. and what's her name? Hines, his wife. Is that his wife? I forget her name now. I feel bad. But I thought about running this on Intellectual Dollar Tree, and after seeing this clip here, I am really glad we did not do that.
So where are the areas where the two of you are in plain alignment, and are there any subjects that you are comfortable sharing that you are not in alignment?
Well, if I'm being candid, where we differ is Bobby is very focused on facts and numbers, and
that's not true.
I understand feelings and people, I think, in a different way. So even during the pandemic, I understand people being afraid. I understand people on both sides being afraid of getting the vaccine, of not getting the vaccine. People were terrified that they weren't going to be able to say goodbye to their mother or father that was passing away. There were so many feelings, overwhelmingly, just filling the air, and people's relationships, and everyone was disagreeing on a lot of things, and a lot of it was coming from just feelings that we were all having. I think that feelings should be addressed first, and maybe science second. So I don't know if that makes sense or if that is understandable, but that's how I feel.
No, you're an empty vessel. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But it is nice that she had compassion for people during the pandemic, I suppose. While her husband was running around trying to trying to drive up the body count, I suppose, is what I would say. Anyway, the next one is just called "Why is Joe Rogan?" and we're almost done with the podcast portion of the show here.
Was a rigged election.
Rigged.
Even if it wasn't rigged.
He's still saying it.
But even if it wasn't rigged, let's say it wasn't rigged. Let's say it was a fair, and that's who won, and that's how it was going to be. Biden won. For sure, it was rigged by the media.
What does that mean?
Just the Hunter Biden laptop case and the Russia collusion case. Just those two things.
Yeah.
Just those two narratives that they knew were not true, that they pushed out in front of everybody, and that we know, had to do with trying to get rid of Trump. That was a big. That is
one over-reporting and one under-reporting.
Yeah. That is, in many ways, that's
an attempt to
manipulation.
Yeah,
it's manipulation of a public narrative. It's a manipulation of what the people.
Joe, you manipulate the public narrative.
Everybody thought he was in collusion with Russia. It's what everybody thought. It's what there were just all these mainstream, except Fox News.
Yeah,
they were the only ones. They were the only ones that weren't pushing it. Everybody else was pushing it.
Yeah, it was sold hard.
Yeah.
It
was not true, and it's proven to be not true. And then
that's not the case.
Hunter Biden laptop thing, which they knew was true, and they said wasn't.
Well, as told in anybody, I dare you to go read that. Was it New York Post story about Hunter Biden's laptop and try to explain to me what happened?
They stopped people from sharing it on social media. They stopped people from sharing it on Twitter. Zuckerberg sat in that very chair and said that the FBI contacted Facebook and told them that it was Russian disinformation. They were getting a bunch of Russian disinformation, and so they limited the.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was the Russians. When the Russians do disinformation, it makes sense. They're a little bit better at it than fucking. I think it was like Steve Bannon or something.
The spread of that. Wow. I don't know how they did it. I don't know exactly what they did to limit the distribution of that article.
The FBI is involved in that.
It's wild shit,
it's pretty
dude.
Wild.
It's wild shit, and no one cares. No one's up in arms. No one's freaking out, because that is a way that you're going to rig an election without rigging an election.
Yeah.
Whether you like that guy or not, we have to follow the rules. We have to. And if we don't follow the rules because we don't like somebody, and we break the law because we don't like somebody.
But who's breaking the law now?
No, I agree.
Now this is banana republic shit.
Yeah, that's not.
Wait, but you're describing the media reporting things in a way that you thought they shouldn't report things, and now you're describing people committing crimes and breaking the law. The media, however you define that, protected under the First Amendment. They can report what they want to report and not report what they don't want to report, Joe.
And the fact that they were willing to do that, and that there's no oversight, that no one can stop them from doing that. And then
would you no oversight? Who's going?
Punishment for them doing that.
It also speaks to like how much he's despised by this.
Despised.
I mean, it
was a rigged election.
Rigged.
Even if it,
like, wait a minute, who's going to oversee the media? Does he want the government telling broadcasters what to say? Because I would I would assume that he doesn't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that for people I don't agree with or for people I do agree with. So I don't know what he wants when he says who's overseeing it. Nobody. That's the point of a free press, Joe. Is that nobody oversees the free press. And people have bosses, and yeah, they're, if there are laws against slander and defamation and all that, but no, nobody oversees the press. It's in the fucking First Amendment. It's in the press is mentioned in the First Amendment. Anyway, here's our last clip of the week. We're going to check in on Brett and Heather, and they're going to wonder why is everybody just so unattractive now?
No, and in this, we've said this before, and many others have as well, but we've become ugly. This is just one, admittedly subjective at the holistic level measure of our collective ill health. But when we were growing up, almost everyone was attractive, and more so even in the 50s, right?
Maybe you just weren't a judgmental asshole when you were a kid, Heather.
And it's not true anymore, and it's sad. And this is not an attack on the individuals who find themselves having been,
hit with the ugly stick
is the right term.
Maimed, having been, birthed into a world where there are not the full set of choices to actually opt out, when what we all should have been allowed to do was choose whether to opt in.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad we don't watch them in long form anymore, because there's a while where this channel was just the Brett and Heather channel, right? Like what the shit? Like when we were kids, everybody was beautiful. No, I think it was that you weren't an asshole when you were a kid. You hadn't become a fucking horrible asshole yet. I think that's what it was. I think you were a better person when you were a child, Heather. Well, that's the show. Podcast listeners, thanks for listening. I'm gonna let you go now. You can get the full show at eplex.store by joining at any level, or at patreon.com/echoplex by joining at the $5 level or higher. Live viewers, hang out. I'm going to change the color of the lighting in here, change the contents of my beverage, and we'll be back for Red Light.